Think of the teenager out with their friends, not wearing their mask. They go home, pass it to their parents. Later that day at dinner, the virus passes from parents to grandparents. Within days, the grandparent is in the ICU and tragically passes. This is a story we're hearing too many times. Stories like this are why we need to stay home, save lives. My friends, I know a stay-at-home order is a drastic measure, one we don't take lightly. Everyone must stay home to save lives. I couldn't be any clearer. Enforcement and inspections will increase. Provincial and local police, bylaw officers, workplace inspectors will enforce these new measures. Under the declaration, they will have powers to disperse people and to issue tickets to bad actors. Bad actors who are caught, they will get fined. And I want to take a moment to address the situation in big box stores. I've seen the crazy lineups. We need more enforcement at these stores. So we'll be starting an inspection blitz of big box stores in the coming days. And I promise you, if we find any issues, there'll be consequences. We'll come down hard on these big box stores if we have to. And this enforcement, it will continue for as long as necessary. But ultimately, from day one, we've been counting on people to do the right thing. The success of these measures will ultimately depend on you. It will depend on each one of you, because without all of us rowing in the same direction, this thing could get much worse. Just look at what's happening in countries where the UK variant has taken hold. It's a total disaster. And we've been told by officials it's not a matter of if this new strain takes hold, it's a matter of when it takes hold and how wide it spreads. My friends, this situation is extremely serious. I just can't stress this enough. But unlike back in March, today we have the vaccine. It's on the horizon. We have hope on the horizon. It's in sight. It's within reach. But we need to give that vaccine the runway it needs. We need to get through the next few months because the vaccine rollout is tied to supply. And based on the current delivery schedule from the federal government, we're still months away from the millions of doses we need to start getting critical mass of people vaccinated. I'm working with the feds. We will do everything we can to help them speed this up. But until then, we're vulnerable. Our hospitals are vulnerable. Our communities are vulnerable. My friends, I know the actions we've announced today are difficult, but they're absolutely necessary. And as your government, we will be there to support people and businesses through these tough times. We have the 24/7 off-peak electricity rate in place. We're providing $200 per child for the parents. We've worked with our federal partners to put in place the new CERB program to help families and workers, the wage subsidy and rent relief programs to help businesses get through these tough times. We have the new Ontario Small Business Support Grant, up to $20,000 to help owners with their costs. And we're also suspending the enforcement of residential evictions so people can stay home safely. As everyone stays home, we're doing everything we can to fight this virus. As Minister Elliott will share in a moment, we're ramping up testing in priority sectors of the economy. And we have a robust strategy for tackling COVID in high priority communities. My friends, the people of Ontario, we're strong, we're resilient. I've seen how tough we can be through the first wave and beyond. And as I've said before, tough times don't last, but tough people do. And we have the toughest people in the world right here in Ontario. My friends, stay home, stay safe, save lives. Thank you. God bless the people of Ontario. Now I'll pass it over to Minister Elliott.
Thank you, Premier. The measures we are introducing today are absolutely necessary to save and protect the lives of Ontarians. This is not the first wave. Now community transmission is widespread. It's in our hospitals, it's in our long-term care homes, and it's in our workplaces. The number of cases and the number of deaths due to COVID-19 are at the highest levels since the start of the pandemic a year ago. And in a few short weeks, our hospital and ICU capacity could be overwhelmed. Yesterday, 41 Ontarians died from COVID-19. It's been an extremely tragic year. Over 5,000 Ontarians have lost their lives to COVID-19 since this pandemic began. These are not just numbers or statistics. These were brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, and grandparents. These were people with families, friends, and loved ones. And we send our deepest condolences to all those who have lost a loved one to COVID-19. This virus is having real impacts on families, on our businesses, and on our communities. That is why we are introducing additional public health restrictions to strengthen our province-wide shutdown measures. As you heard from Dr. Brown this morning through his modeling update, we must change our mobility patterns. Too many people are having too many contacts. Increased contacts result from increased mobility. So to break this cycle, you must stay home as much as possible. And that starts with a stay-at-home order. As part of the stay-at-home order, we are asking businesses to ensure that any employee who can work from home does work from home. All non-essential construction will be closed. All non-essential retail stores will be required to close by 8 p.m., with the exception of grocery stores, convenience stores, pharmacies, and restaurants providing takeout orders. Outdoor gatherings will be further restricted to 5 people. Wearing masks will be mandatory in all places and should be worn outside as well when you can't keep meters. School closures in Southern Ontario are being extended until January 25th. Will be assessed on an ongoing basis. Schools and hot may not. We are also expanding rapid testing to help identify isolation. We are doing this by providing 300,000 COVID-19 rapid tests per week to support key sectors, manufacturing, warehousing, supply chain, and food, as well as additional tests for schools and long-term care. We expect to receive nearly 12 million pan-bio rapid tests from the federal government over the next couple months, and we continue to pursue opportunities to purchase additional rapid. We also continue to implement our high priorities community strategy, and local lead agencies have begun to deliver key interventions in the province's hardest hit vulnerable neighborhoods. Together, these measures will help fight the spread of this deadly virus. We have made great strides in vaccinating tens of thousands of Ontarians. We must continue to build on this. I am urging you to please follow respect the new measures. We are counting on each of you to do the right thing and act responsibly so we break the deadly trend of transmission. Please be part of the solution. Stay home, stay safe, and stay. Thank you. Now I'd like
Thank you, Minister Elliott. As the Premier stated, declaring Ontario's second state of emergency in response to COVID-19 is not an action we take. We are fighting the spread of a virus that once again led us to the brink of health. This is an emergency, and we are treating it. We have been upfront with the severity of the threat if the numbers begin moving in the manner we have seen during these weeks. We have said we would not hesitate to explore and exhaust all options. We are declaring this provincial emergency to allow for stronger measures to reduce the spread of COVID-19. And these measures will be enforced. Greater authority will be provided to enforcement personnel across the country to ensure restrictions and orders are followed. Additionally, individuals, employees, corporations, and retailers found not complying with an order, enforcement personnel have the authority to issue all provincial indoors officers also, for example, have the authority to disperse crowds indoors as well as outdoors. For example, when a group of more than 5 people from different households are gathering outdoors, they can be asked to leave. In addition, workplace inspections by Labour and Provincial Offences Officers are not complying with these orders. They will be officers will be enhanced to increase compliance with public health measures. Let me be clear. If people sleep, and we ask that all Ontarians do the same. It is critical, now more than ever, that people adhere to the orders and follow public health measures. Please stay home, stay safe. Orders can only take us so far. Stopping the spread of COVID-19 can only be done if we all band together and make an extraordinary effort to protect the communities, families, and our friends call home. Thank you.
We'll go to the phone line for questions. First question, please.
Your first question comes from Lucas Meyer with News Talk 1010. Please go ahead.
Hey, Lucas.
Premier, on the enforcement side of various workplaces, how are you going to, in real time, how is this logistically going to work where employers who have to send people home are going to, and how that enforcement's going to work? Can you just elaborate on what employers are how they're going to be handled with this?
For employer and employees that have to be sent home because of COVID? Is that
Correct.
the question? Well, first of all, through the federal government, you'll be able to get 2 weeks of pay if you're being sent home for COVID. And also, if you live in a household with, let's say, multi-generational folks in there, then there's hotels that we have with the federal government that we can put you in a hotel for a 2-week period. I'll pass it over to the Solicitor General.
So the Ministry of Labour has 450 labour enforcement officers that are out across Ontario looking at the businesses that are open to ensure that they are complying, protecting their employees as well as their customers. In terms of if someone has to self-isolate, as the Premier mentioned, there are options available through the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing where they can go to a centre, a hotel, and protect themselves while protecting their family and not spreading. So all of those options working together ensure that we make sure when you need to self-isolate away from your family to protect them, we have those options available to you. And I would encourage people, if they are concerned, then they have to speak to their employer. They have to make sure that we can help you and that we are aware of it. Thank you.
Follow-up?
Well, sorry, I should have clarified. I mean in terms of for businesses who have to send them to work from home if they can. You're obviously telling employers if you can send your people home, you should do that. That's what I was actually pointing to, is how is that going to be handled? And secondly, on schools, now that classrooms are going to be closed in those hotspots until February 10th, what is going to be the educational plan to get that back open by that time, now that there's been another extension?
Well, I'll go back to your very first question. When possible, please work from home. And a perfect example, and you see it, you're downtown, that, you know, back in March, April, the streets were empty down here. Now, through the Ministry of Transportation, we're pretty well at 85% capacity before COVID even hit. So obviously, people are out there. They're moving from point A to point B, and we're just asking people, please cooperate. Please stay at home, save lives. It's absolutely critical. I'll pass it over to Minister Elliott regarding the schools.
Well, with the schools, as the Premier said, we absolutely want to protect our children and young people to make sure that they stay safe. We've seen increases in transmission among children. We're not exactly sure now exactly how transmissible that is from them, but we are seeing higher levels of children with COVID. And we also know that the children going back to school affects mobility too. Over 20% of mobility, because if children are home, it changes the parents' behavior as well. So it achieves two purposes. I know it's not ideal to have children out of school for long periods of time. We do want them to go back as soon as they can, but their safety is paramount, and we always have to err on the side of safety when it comes to our children.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Julianne Lamorex with Radio Canada. Please go ahead.
Hi, Julianne.
Yes, hi, bonjour tout le monde. The modelings announced today are not that different from those announced before the holidays. So in hindsight, the stricter measures being announced today, should they have been announced before the holidays?
Well, right now, I'll tell you, as we're moving forward, I think they're a lot stricter. When we have a stay-at-home order, that's pretty serious. That took us 5 hours last night on cabinet to run through everything. And believe me, we had a pretty healthy debate on it. And we're making sure that when it comes to enforcement, we're allowing more police officers, more bylaw officers to implement fines for bad actors. And it's absolutely critical. The people that haven't been listening, we're looking at about 30%, that's where the spread's happening. And I'm just asking those 30%, if you love your grandparents, and I know you do, if you love your parents, love your neighbors, your co-workers, please follow the process, follow the guidelines that we put out there. I just can't stress it enough. And if we don't, we're going to see the numbers that we saw the modeling Dr. Brown showed us. And if that isn't scary enough, I don't know what is. We're seeing potentially cases going up to 15,000. Those are staggering numbers. Worst case scenario, if we don't do something, if we don't follow the guidelines and the procedures. Folks, please, 28 days, we've come so far all together. We need to stick together. We need to get through this. The vaccines are there. We will have mass vaccinations happening in April, May, and June. We need a little bit of a runway. That's all we need. We need a little bit of a runway to get there. And in the meantime, General Hillier, he's out there. He has a well-oiled machine. We have great infrastructure. All we need right now are the vaccines. That's what we need more than anything.
Follow up?
But the forecast presented this morning suggests that more deaths will occur in Wave 2 at long-term care homes than in Wave 1. And you had promised to put an iron ring around the residents of these homes. So where exactly did we fail?
Well, I'll pass that over to the Minister of Health.
We are building that iron ring around the long-term care homes by the vaccinations that we're doing. And we have centered our vaccination efforts on vaccinating the residents of long-term care homes, their essential caregivers, and the staff that are coming in. And I can tell you that in the 4 hotspots, Windsor, Essex, Toronto, Peel, and York, we are proceeding very well with that. Windsor, Essex has already completed the vaccinations of all of their long-term care residents. Toronto tells us they will be completed by the 18th of January, and both Peel and York are also on track. This is the best way that we can protect our residents of long-term care who are so very vulnerable, and that's why they have been chosen to be first to receive the vaccinations.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Christina Tenelia with CP24. Please go ahead.
Hi, Christina.
Hi, Premier. Hi, everyone. Want to know what the difference really is here between a stay-at-home order and a curfew, and in terms of enforcement. Because I mean, what are police in these jurisdictions across the province supposed to do if someone's out and about and and says, oh, I'm going to exercise, oh, I'm going to the grocery store. There's no way to prove that otherwise. Also, I want to point out, these enforcement measures have been in place for months. New Year's Eve at Nathan Phillips Square here in Toronto, about 350 people gathered. Toronto police chose not to ticket anyone. So these measures have already been around. Why are you so confident that now enforcement is going to work, and how will it work?
Well, I'll start off before I send to the Solicitor General. I'll start off the differentiating between a curfew and a stay-at-home order. We're asking people, and we need to help. Granted, I hear you. We have close to 15 million people, and we've never been strong on, and ever applying a police state. A curfew is you aren't leaving your house. Simple as that. After 8 o'clock, you see what's happening in Quebec, the streets are empty. I've never been in favor of a curfew, and I'm going to tell you the reason why I've never been in favor of a curfew, and that's a hard lockdown. Cars aren't driving around, nothing at all, because I believe in the people of Ontario. And as soon as you tell the people of Ontario you've lost trust and we're going to have police chasing you down the street when you're driving, that's it, it's game over. You might as well throw in the white flag. Everyone's been working together for the last 10, 11 months, going through tremendous strain on everyone. But the last thing I've ever believed in, is having a curfew that when you pull out of your driveway after 8 o'clock, the police are chasing down the street. I just do not believe in that. I'll pass it over to the Solicitor General.
So one of the big changes with the stay-at-home order is actually allowing and empowering provincial offences officers, most commonly bylaw enforcement officers, to also issue tickets and to disperse crowds of larger than 5 if they're not in the same household. There are many things that we can do as a government, but at the end of the day, people have to understand how serious this is and how by staying home, it will in fact save lives. That's at the core of everything we're doing. If people comply with that, if people understand how that will ultimately save their loved ones, their family members, their grandparents, then we have achieved a goal that is going to allow us to beat COVID-19 until we can get sufficient vaccines to vaccinate all Ontarians who wish to do so. Thank you.
Follow-up?
Christina.
I want to ask you about reduced hours for places like grocery stores and other similar stores. Are you concerned that will just result in more people heading out and shopping during condensed store hours? Because most of these stores, like Costco, for example, already closes at 8 p.m. Someone wrote to me saying, I opt to go to the grocery store late so I can avoid crowds and limit my exposure to others. And they're also concerned about limited hours is not helpful to essential workers who work shift.
Well, all retail stores and big box stores, and I want to talk again for a second about big box stores. I'm going to come down on them like an 800-pound gorilla. If they aren't following the protocols, they aren't following the guidelines, if they don't have 50% only in the stores, there's going to be consequences for them. And I'm not going to mess around with these big box stores. There's a purpose. People should go in, get their stuff, and come home. Going back to what you were saying about a curfew, we aren't telling people if they have to walk their dog around the block. As Dr. Williams said, walk your dog. If you need to stretch your legs, walk around the block. All we're asking is for cooperation for the people. Please stay home. That's what we're asking for. I'll pass it over to the Minister of Health.
Well, it is really important to reduce the transmission, to reduce mobility, and the less you're out, the less you can transmit the virus or receive the virus. So that's going to be really vital for us going forward. But with respect to your question about the stores, any of the essential stores that sell groceries, pharmacies, convenience stores, gas stations, and so on, they can stay open to their regular hours. It's only the purveyors of non-essential goods that will be held to the 8 p.m. guideline and will be required to be closed by that point.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Rob Ferguson with the Toronto Star. Please go ahead.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Premier. I think probably a lot of people are watching at home right now and wondering what is essential.
I'm sorry, you broke up, Rob.
Rob, your phone's kind of cut out there.
Maybe we can come back
We'll
to
go
Rob.
to the next question.
Thank you. The next question comes from Travis Danrosh with Global News. Please go ahead.
Hi, Travis.
Hi there, Premier. Good to talk to you. It's been
Good
a
to
little
talk to you,
while.
too.
Listen, I think most people in this province would agree that Ontario is not in a good place right now. But when asked if the government bears any responsibility for where we are right now, Dr. Yaffe said yesterday it's the virus's fault, and then she went on to talk about Ontario's action. You just said as well that there's one thing to blame, it's the virus. But are you telling the people of Ontario that where we are right now is only the result of their behavior and not because of government inaction? I mean, there have been calls for further restrictions for some time now, for more enforcement. So does the government bear any responsibility here?
Travis, from day one, I take all responsibility. This lands on me. I take full responsibility. I think all the people of the province have worked well together. We've worked collaboratively with the federal government, with the municipal government, and obviously our provincial government. We've worked collaboratively with all other provinces. Everyone is working their back off nonstop. We need to secure our hospitals, secure our ICU. We have to make sure that people are following the guidelines. And that's what we're going to continue to do. So if there's any mishaps, I'll take the full responsibility. But I know one thing, Travis, we are doing everything in our power, everything, day in, day out, sleepless nights. This has been going on for 11 months without one day a break. And it's not about me. How about all the frontline healthcare workers that have been working around the clock, that are just stressed out to the max right now? Everyone is pitching in, and we're going to continue to work as a team, and we will get through this. And we will come out strong. We will create jobs. The economy will be booming. But we need that bridge. We need that bridge to get to April, May, and June. In the meantime, we're vaccinating the most vulnerable in our province. And we have a well-oiled machine when it comes to that. So we work as a team. And again, any mishaps, I'm wearing it.
Follow up?
And I know that you said you're doing everything possible, but Dr. Yaffe, if I can point to her remarks yesterday again, she came out in favor yesterday of paid sick leave. I know that you've pointed to the federal COVID benefit, which is $450 a week. Do you think that's enough money for the minimum wage worker who has symptoms from stopping them from going to work? And do you think that's enough for most people who live paycheck to paycheck? And there's a growing consensus, it seems, as though proper paid sick leave is key to reducing case count. So why isn't that happening? Why don't you listen to them when it comes to that?
Well, what we've agreed with the federal government, we aren't going to duplicate areas of support. We've spent billions and billions of dollars supporting families, supporting businesses, and we're going to continue to do that. They have that paid sick leave, which is very important. And we support them on that paid sick leave. So we're going to be there for the people in all different types of fashions, no matter if it's making sure that people can't be evicted from their homes, making sure that we give $200 to parents for every child that is in school. The electricity rates, we're keeping the electricity rates low. We're doing everything we can, and billions, not hundreds of millions, billions. Between ourselves, on top of that, the federal government, we're going to continue supporting the people to get over the hump until we can get back on our feet.
Last question.
Your final question comes from Allison Martell with Reuters. Please go ahead.
Hi, Allison.
Premier Ford, thank you. The federal illness benefit that you've referenced today runs out after 2 weeks. So let's imagine a parent who has to stay home for 1 week because their child was exposed to school, for a second week because they had a sore throat and got tested and were negative, and the third week they actually have COVID. What should they do then?
Well, great question. And we're going to work in conjunction with the federal government to make sure that continues the support that is needed. And again, we will be there, and I'm confident with the federal government, they'll be there, as they have been right from day one with us. We're going to work together, and we're going to be there for the families. And I'm pretty sure, I can't speak for the federal government, but I'm pretty sure they're going to extend that.
Follow up?
What is the downside in mandating true paid sick leave, full income support, so that everybody can afford to stay home? Can you help us understand the argument against this?
Well, again, there's the amount that the federal government is given that will get people over the hump for a couple of weeks. If it extends, there's the EI benefits. I had the phone call with the finance minister, deputy prime minister, trying to shorten that period from, I think it's about 2-3 weeks for EI, and I want to shorten it down to a week or even 4 days for the sick pay as well. There's a tremendous amount of people that live paycheck by paycheck. I had that conversation with Chrystia Freeland just a few days ago, and saying whatever you can do to shorten that until we can help people so they won't have a period of a week or 2 weeks without income. And I know, I have confidence in Chrystia that she will do everything she can to shorten that time frame until we can get money into people's pockets.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone. Please stay home, save lives. Thank you.